So today I want to dive deeper into the use of the content search API and things to consider when building your Helix solutions. So if you don't know this already, never write code that uses a Sitecore query. It very quickly leads to performance issues. So whenever you're looking for items or using search, use the content search API. There's a couple examples in the reference solution I just want to show you that you can use as kind of a basis, and I want to do a little deeper dive on some of these. You'll note in the foundation.sample, we have a sample content repository, and this get sample content by category method is a method that leverages the content search API. A couple of things to note. I'm using a current item to get it, and the Sitecore indexing item to get the index. You could write code to use the configuration settings, but I find that adds additional complexity because you have to worry about making sure that configuration setting pointing to the right index. And as long as your item is a context item, in other words, it's coming from the database that you're working. So if you're looking at master, you'll get the master index, and if you're looking on CD servers, you'll get the web index. I find that to be the most flexible way to do that. The other thing I highly recommend is using a predicate builder. You can use a queryable directly, and that works for simple queries. But in the beginning, you may not know how complex your queries need to be, and starting with a predicate builder where you can add subqueries and things like that are definitely worth it. A couple of other things is by default with your queryable will be a search result item, which is a Sitecore class. And that gives you access to certain fields, but it won't give you access to any custom fields you added to your template. So in most cases, if you need to do these type of searches, you'll need to subclass that. And in this case, we create our own sample content search result item. And you can see under search, I've defined that class right here. And it's a relatively simple class. It's just really extending the out-of-the-box search result item. And it adds an additional field. In this case, it's category. And I'm telling it what field name to use so that I can actually query by that. So you can see we're doing item.category is equal to the category ID, which is coming from our input there. The other thing to note with these predicate builders is like this is pretty straightforward. This actually could be replaced by a queryable, but if you have conditionals where you have more complex things where it could be this or this or this, you kind of have to be able to represent this and or type functionality, and that's what predicate builder gets you. You can end a bunch of ands with a bunch of ors by doing things like that. So starting with this just makes it easy to extend if you need to extend it. The other thing I'll note here is one of the things you'll have to consider is when you return the results, you just return the hits, which will be of type sample content search result item, and that will probably be the quickest or best performing way to do that. So if you can just hand that off and use that, by all means do that. But if you need to kind of maintain a robust strongly typed collection. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm actually casting each result item to a glass class and returning the glass class. So that just, in this case, I mean, I'm not expecting a lot of results, so the performance hit from doing that mapping is not that great. But if you're returning a large number of items or you're doing processing, really consider whether you need to do that or not. The last piece I'll talk about is in some cases with search, you're going to need to use a computed field. And I actually created a category computed field. You really would never really need to do this. I did this as an example because there will be cases where you need to do that and you need to index it. And plus, truth be told, I was having issues getting the GUID in the proper format. So by doing it this way, I had complete control of it. So in this case, created a computed field for category ID, which I registered. I'll show you the registration in a while. And as long as the template's correct, I'm just returning the value of that drop link field. And then to register it, you could see under foundation.sample, there's an index configuration. This is the Solr configuration. So if you're not using Solr, this may look a little different. But in this case, I'm adding category ID and specifying the type. So definitely when working with Sitecore items and having to do any sort of search, unless you have a very specific case where you have the path exactly and you can load the item or just get its children, definitely recommend leveraging the content search API. Thanks.